Good morning, Year 6. Today in your English session, you're going to be thinking about how to use relative clauses effectively, looking at relative pronouns as well. And you're also going to be trying to begin to write an element of your story. So the first two of the 5 sections of your story in the style of the Just So stories that Rudyard Kipling delivered many years ago. Okay? To be successful today, you're going to clarify when relative clauses have been successfully used. You can confirm the meanings of different verbs within our spellings of the week. So you can look at our spellings of the week. You can identify which skills and which writing elements would be expected to be included in a setting description. You're going to support me in writing my opening, and then you're going to write your own opening as well. So that'd be a successful lesson if you've done that. Okay, guys. Right. First of all, I'd like you to have a think about is which of these words are relative pronouns. So this is the girl who. So is it this or who? Then it's I ordered, or is it which? I always enjoy. And then she finally got to see the film that everyone was talking about. So which of those are relative pronouns? Not which are relative clauses, but which are relative pronouns. Okay, so having a look. Okay. Many of you will have spotted that. Okay, who is one of our 5 relative pronouns? Okay, so who found the dog? Okay, so who found the dog? This is the girl. Could have been a sentence on its own. This is the girl. Full stop. But this is the girl who found the dog. So the additional information is carried within that relative clause. I ordered a pizza. Full stop would make sense on its own, but the additional element here is which I always enjoy. Lucky person's never eaten one of the terrible pizzas some people might cook, but it's hopefully somebody who's enjoying every pizza they've ever eaten, so they always enjoy it. So which I always enjoy. And she finally got is a verb, and that everyone was talking about. And that is the relative pronoun there. So here are our relative pronouns, okay, and they're a bit of a flag really that point us in the direction of a writer using a relative clause. Okay. Now, some of these have got correctly used relative clauses. So I'll give you a clue. It's 3, which means that one of the 4 is incorrect. Okay, so let's read them through. Mum, who had just finished work, made herself a nice cup of tea. Now, I can check whether in this instance the embedded relative clause is correctly used by just saying the rest of the sentence on its own. Mum made herself a nice cup of tea. Yep, makes sense. Okay, so that tells me that as long as it starts with a relative pronoun of who, in this instance, that relative clause, as long as it's adding information to the subject of the main sentence, is the main clause is correctly used. So I'm happy with A. John liked the new car, which he'd bought with his own money. Okay, it's not an embedded relative clause. It's a separate clause in the sense that there's a main clause and then a subordinate clause. But there, John liked the new car does make sense on its own, so I'm happy with that. Which he'd brought with his own money doesn't make sense on its own, but does start with a relative pronoun of which. The bike, who had a flat tire, had to be pushed home. The bike had to be pushed home makes sense. So the main clause that's got an embedded element within it makes sense on its own. Who had a flat tire? Who? Is that the correct relative pronoun? Who? Who? Now, if I draw a picture on my bike and get it to talk like in a cartoon, it might become a character. However, at this point, I'm not sure. I don't think that that's a correctly used relative clause because the pronoun of who doesn't feel correct to me. And therefore, I'm looking at the final one, and I've been told that 3 of the 4 are correct, and I can see that has a wobbly leg. That looks correct to me. So I'm happy now that who had finished, which he'd brought, and that had a wobbly leg. They're correct, but the one that isn't is the who within that third sentence. Okay. Right, guys, what I'd like you to do is look up here. Now, these are the language points that you were looking at within those spellings from Friday just gone. And what I'd like you to do with all of these points is to copy down any of them that are verbs. So any of these words which are verbs, so words which indicate the action a subject is going to do, could you copy those words down next to them? Okay, you've got them on a sheet as well. So which ones do you think should be copied? Do you think deceive is something somebody does? Is conceive something a character can undertake? Is receiving something that somebody might achieve? Is perceiving something that you've done about something? Is sealing something you do? Is receipt something you have experienced? Is protein something you like to play in your playtime? Is caffeine something you like to do with your friends? Is seize something you're able to do with goods when you're working in the customs? And is neither anything that you can do? Let's see which ones are verbs. See if we spotted them. Deceive. So when we deceive, we we're cheating. When we conceive, we're creating something. We're thinking of something new. So normally used about thinking of things, or we can conceive of an idea. Receive is when we get something. We receive something from the post, or somewhere like that. Perceive is when we review. Our perception is what we've perceived, what we've viewed. And then the final one is seize. When we grab something from somebody, when we take something from somebody, we seize that. Okay. Okay, so we've got those words, and there's the synonyms. So we've got hide, think of, get, perceive, and seize. Okay, so those synonyms which indicate the meaning for those 5 verbs. Okay, right, guys. Today, then, we're thinking about our plan. I've got our plan from earlier in the week. Our plan was around the dog that got its sense of smell, and you're going to be using the skills from the dog that got its sense of smell to think about how you're going to write your own story. Okay, so if I was thinking about that, I've got my story plan just up in the top left of the screen, and I know that I need to include relative clauses, dialogue, rich vocabulary, and for verb, but also adverbs. So the 4 key points that I've said, and some of you are trying to include additional key language points that you know that you want to include in your writing. Right, guys, today all we're thinking about is the first 2 sections, our opening and our build-up. So for my story, the idea of the dog was producing horrible smells, and the idea of the cat and the pigeon moaning to each other. Okay, so those are the first 2 sections. We wrote some actions relating to this on Tuesday, so we've got some action about the kitten, and we've got that lovely embedded relative clause of who had just noticed the awful odour. Okay, so we've got that element written already. And what we need to think about today is what might have happened before then, or what would we think of in a story? Do we go straight into the action, or do we sometimes create a setting description? Now, I think as writers, you all understand that you need to be including an element of your setting description. I don't know where the kitten is at the moment. Even if I think to that sketchy picture that I drew yesterday, I don't know where the dog is. So I want to think about a location for the events to take place in. I want to paint a picture in the reader's head so that they're clear what's going on, where it's happening. Now I'm going to say that they're sitting by the edge of the pond. So I've got this verb, sitting by the edge of the pond. The dog's soggy hair was giving off a powerful smell. Okay, so now I've got a bit more of an image of what's going on. Now, I'm thinking sitting by the edge of the emerald coloured pond. Oh, I like that. Okay, it's not just a pond now. I've got an idea. I've got a vision in my head of the colour of the water, emerald coloured, not green pond. Green's great if you're, learning a new language or if you're in year 1. However, if you're in year 6, I'd expect that rich vocabulary showing you've thought about either a colour thesaurus or you've thought about other things that are similar colour. So an emerald coloured pond. Okay, so I know what shade of green it is now in my head. I can really picture the dog being there by the other animals with a powerful smell. The powerful smell. Okay. Sitting by the edge of the emerald coloured pond, the dog's soggy hair was giving off a powerful smell. Not great at all so far. Let's see what now. Looking across the still waters, the hound. Looking across again. So I now know what the dog's doing before anything else emerges. So before any of the other characters are involved, I know what the dog's doing. I also know that the waters where the dog is viewing things are not choppy. It's a still pond, and therefore I can conjure in my head a bit more about the idea of what's going on there. Looking across the still waters, so the still calm waters, looking across the still waters, the hound noticed water boatmen skipping on the surface. I don't know if you've ever seen a water boatman. It's kind of like a little insect that can not float but can step on water because of the way that the weight that its body has within it is distributed. It's able to not break the seal of the water. Okay, and because of that, it can move around on the water. Now, looking across the still waters, so I know what the dog's doing. It's looking across. It's still waters. Looking across the still waters. The hound. Why have I picked hound rather than dog? Don't want to repeat that language, do I? Yeah. Looking across the still waters, the hound noticed water boatmen skipping on the surface. I like that picture of skipping. So it's got this idea about how they're moving. And they're not going underneath, they're not next to, but they're on the surface. Okay, so I can picture what's going on and where things are happening. Now, looking across the still waters, the hound noticed water boatmen skipping on the surface. And then I can put a simile in because I'm including similes in my writing. Without always being on the no show, I know that similes conjure a picture in the head when I'm using those figurative techniques that we looked at with our Gothic writing. Looking across the still waters, the hound noticed water boatmen skipping on the surface, like Olympic skaters training at an ice rink. Now I've got more of a clear picture. It's not just a water boatman, it's a water boatman that's doing something quite majestic, quite delicate. Okay, they're jumping around, they're able to control their actions. I like this idea that they're quite artistic in their movements. So I've got a really clear image in my head now. I like that, Kimberly. Now, as he finished witnessing the entrancing spectacle, I like that opener as well. So I've been looking, I'm at a dog, I've been looking, I've been smelling, but I've been looking, I've been looking, I've been looking. Now I stop looking because I've finished. So as he finished looking at the entrancing spectacle. So it's not just as he finished watching the insect, I'm going to be stopping looking at it. So as he finished watching the entrancing spectacle, the dog noticed the other animals were not looking in his direction. Now, the fact that they're not looking at him maybe tells a story about how they perceive him. Because when you don't make eye contact with another animal, when you don't look at another animal, it possibly paints a picture in your head that that animal isn't one that you're welcoming. It possibly paints a picture that you are not getting on with that animal. Now, he finished witnessing the entrancing spectacle. Who was completely focused on the pool? Who was? Who was? Who's the who? I'm thinking about my relative clause here. Spectacle can't be a who. Have I put that relative clause correctly? That embedded relative clause there? Because I like this idea that the dog had stopped watching that entrancing spectacle. I think I've put it in the incorrect space. Where do you think it should go? So what's the who? The who, because it's a character and the story is going to be the dog. So therefore, it's as he finished witnessing the entrancing spectacle, the dog, who was completely focused on the pool, noticed the other animals were not looking in his direction. Now, I know this isn't perfectly positioned on the lines, but you can see this joining in the writing. It's important that we try and mirror that in the delivery of our work, because we're trying to not just show our skills as writers in terms of what we compile, but how we can be read. So now I've got a really developing story, and now I can include action from yesterday. So now, Jeremiah, you were asking when you're going to put your action in. Jeremiah, after you've set the setting to screen, now you're going to include your action. But could we improve it even further? Have you found a way of embellishing or improving that vocabulary there? Right here, we've got the kitten who had just noticed the awful odor. Well, whose is it? Could I include? Could I show that it's the dog's awful odor there, rather than saying here the stinking dog? Can I improve stinking? Can I use rich vocabulary? Can I use a better word than dog? So the writing that I did yesterday, can I improve it further? So today then, guys, you're going to circle which of these are verbs, and then you're going to draw the actions. So a nice bit of artwork there to think about: deceive, conceive, receive, perceive, and seize. And then you're going. This is the main bit. You're going to use this task sheet. Write your first two elements, so your opening and your build-up, or your build-up and your opening, of your story which relates to one of your animals. So the story that you're writing about how an animal got the feature or the character element that it has now. I really look forward to reading those. I'm excited to see both of them. I look forward to seeing the action here, but I'm particularly excited to see the first two sections of your writing here. Thank you very much for concentrating today. I really do look forward to hearing from you tomorrow, seeing those tomorrow, sorry. And yeah, can't wait to read these stories, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.